This is what Rimsky-Korsakov said when he started working on it. When I started putting it in order with the intention of creating a workable concert piece, I took everything I considered the best and most appropriate out of the late composer's remaining materials to give coherence and wholeness to this work. That statement strikes me as a little bit politically correct. He was, this is just a few years after Mussorgsky died, so he's trying to put the best spin on what he did with this material. So for the first hour, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and we're just going to look at the Rimsky-Korsakov version and pull all we can out of it. And then after that, we'll take a little look at the Mussorgsky version, which is an eye-opener. There's also another version done for Fantasia. That was one that Stokowski did, and that is where the piece gets its modern popularity. That is an adaptation of the Rimsky-Korsakov version, so you can see this piece has a really checkered history. Check this quick quote out. This is what Tchaikovsky said about Mussorgsky. Mussorgsky, you very rightly call a hopeless case. In talent, he's perhaps superior to all the other... There was kind of a club of 5 composers around that time in Russia. But his nature is narrow-minded, devoid of any urge towards self-perfection, blindly believing in the ridiculous theories of his circle and in his own genius. In addition, he has a certain base side to his nature which likes coarseness, uncouthness, roughness. He flaunts his illiteracy, takes pride in his ignorance, mucks about anyhow, blindly believing in the infallibility of his genius, yet he has flashes of talent which are, moreover, not devoid of originality. So I found that hilarious. Because I'm trying to get an insight into who this man was and why he would write a piece like this and the way he did it, and the way that we look at this piece today, which we're going to get to. So one thing I wanted to point out before we got into it is I find this piece, the way Rimsky-Korsakov did it, it's very modular. We have maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 motifs. If you look right back at the first page, that string thing, and then you've got the basses going bum, 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 that kind of Jaws-esque theme. And once I kind of really started digging into the score, I find that the entire score is made up of these little bits and pieces that are then plotted against each other. So I was actually going to point that out before we started the pieces. Listen for those, because you're going to hear them come back again and again, not necessarily with development in a traditional sense of development, but in juxtaposition. And the juxtaposition is kind of what makes it interesting. And this is actually more unique to the Rimsky-Korsakov version. You'll find when we get to the Mussorgsky, it's much less disciplined. And we'll decide together whether it's more interesting that way.
I just love the fact that you get all these different worlds, the chorale world in this slow thing, and then all this sparkle on top and this rumble below. It's for me, at least as a conductor, getting those 3 worlds and getting them in their place, having them sit right, get the right balance is so hard. It sounds so great. And the other thing, you guys probably talk about this all the time, the horns as the magic glue of the orchestra. And so here's a passage where everything is kind of in pieces and everything, but having the pedal down with the horns, it kind of binds the whole thing together. I like the idea of this super instrument thing, because it does have a sound. I mean, it's a unique sound, right? It really has a sound that's all its own, with these combinations, the rhythms and also, again, the chromaticism with the chords too. On top of that, the orchestration and the harmony are working together that way to blur things. I think that's a great point.
Russell, I love your point about just leaving the hole in the middle, because I think especially in modern orchestration and the big trailer world, we need everything like louder and fuller and bigger, and and we have sample libraries that are 100-piece orchestras. Yeah. And here there's a purposeful coloration of there's a big hole in the middle, not just instrumentally because the brass is doing very little, but the strings are either playing very high or very low. Mm-hmm. The woodwinds are pretty much all fairly high. There's nothing in the middle.
Yeah, we've got an A pedal,
yeah,
and then just nothing, just space in between it.
Yeah.
I always think of that with one of the great criticisms I heard about Robert Schumann, the great composer, is that he, in his songs, and he would do because of the text, he would do all kinds of irregular things, and like Dichterly, but you get very odd shapes and everything. But one of the criticisms of his symphonic works is everything ends up being 4/4 a lot of times. But he liked to work against that, so he liked to keep that regular, like jazz people, I guess. But yeah, you're
right.
This is of course Tchaikovsky's great. Ability to have these slithery chromatic lines that all line up with all these implied French chords and German augmented 6 chords. So the augmented 6 where you have the half steps inside the octave pushing out, and that's what makes it so convincing all the time. So it looks like everything's strategically done to create that.
Rimsky-Korsakov did the version we just studied, and that's where it started to take hold. Fantasia came along, that really kind of cemented it in popular culture, so to speak. So decades and decades later, we get the Mussorgsky version of it, which is quite different. And I wanted to, can you pull up quote 5? Russell, before you came, we read a couple quotes on how scatterbrained he was. He was also alcoholic. So, yeah, we didn't read this one. Mussorgsky's score to include absurd, disconnected harmony, ugly part writing, sometimes strikingly illogical modulation, sometimes a depressing lack of it, unsuccessful scoring of orchestral things. What was needed at the moment was an addition for performance, for practical artistic aims, for familiarization with his enormous talent, not for the study of his personality and artistic transgressions. So this is, I gave you that Rimsky quote earlier where I said it was much more PC. This is Rimsky unleashed. Now saying, you know what, I had to clean up a lot of crap to do what I did. So now it'll be particularly interesting to see what did he clean up.
I'm struck, first of all, how different they are, and hearing them back to back like this. I really feel like Rimsky-Korsakov was putting a lot of his own stamp on his adaptation. Now I'm wondering how other orchestrations, other adaptations, whether they've treated this material more
Authentically.
kept it more integral to the piece or not.
The only other one that I'm aware of would be the Stokowski one done for Fantasia, and that was based off the Rimsky one, so now we're kind of an extra generation away from original intent.
Right.